On this episode of the Pleasure Monkey podcast, I'm hanging out with two women who have made it their mission to help others live the most fulfilling, most expressive, and most free life possible. Jill Coleman and Danny Johnson share their experience with others to help them develop the art of a positive mindset, find financial freedom, and invest into their body and business. Now, in this conversation, we talk a lot about how to share an authentic story and how valuable transparency can be if done properly. We talk about what it means to be someone's soulmate, what we've learned from our past relationships that we take into our current and future experiences with other people, friendships and romantic relationships. And we basically solve all the world's problems in this 1 hour chat. Now, based on this conversation and these ladies doing what they do, they've inspired me to launch something that I've been working on for a long time, and that is the Lifestyle Design Program. If that interests you at all, hang around at the end of the episode. I'm going to go into details about what exactly that is. But until then, enjoy the show with Danny and Jill. Before we jump into the show, we got to give a little love to our sponsors. Onnit.com is your home for all things optimization, from cognitive enhancement supplements to exercise and fitness programs to meditation courses to recipes for the best meals you will ever put in your mouth. And I want to highlight one product in particular that kind of crosses all the spectrums that Onnit covers, and that is the Gut Health Pack. The Gut Health Pack is a one-stop shop for all things you need to optimize your gut. Now, just think about if you could digest all those proteins, carbohydrates, and fat and really fuel your body to the max. That's what the Gut Health Pack is going to do for you. And the thing about it is you don't have to think about it. You just take a gut pack with a meal every day, and your gut's going to be loving life. Your cognitive function is going to be on point. You're going to be breaking down all the proteins and fueling those mighty muscles that you are working out day in and day out and feeling fucking awesome, guys. So if you are down with some gut health, slide on over to onnit.com/monkey. You're going to get a 10% discount. Grab yourself some gut packs and get on with living the best life you have ever experienced. The podcast is also brought to you by our friends over at perfectketo.com. Now, perfectketo.com is your provider of the best tasting, most affordable exogenous ketones on the market, and the quality is outstanding. Now, what you're going to get from taking exogenous ketones is the ability to keep your body in a fat-burning state longer through various methods like extending a fast or adding them in with your normal diet if you're not focusing on a ketogenic approach to basically spark the system that burns fat in your body. You're also going to clear out a lot of that mental fog. So you're going to have enhanced focus throughout the day, and then it's going to fuel your workouts and allow you to burn a more efficient fuel throughout your workouts. Now, better workouts lead to more fat loss, lead to better focus, and you're just perpetuating a very positive cycle in your life with these supplements. So I can testify to these supplements. I've tried a lot of exogenous ketones, but the Perfect Keto ketones, first off, taste amazing, are very, very affordable, and like I said, the quality is outstanding. So if you head on over to perfectketo.com, use the code word monkey at checkout, you're going to get a 20% discount, and you will not regret this. If you haven't tried them, if you're curious about them, if you've seen them around, check them out. They are fantastic. You will not be disappointed. Perfectketo.com, code word monkey at checkout, 20% discount. Make it happen, my friends. Enjoy. We live in a world that's
so weird.
Half of it's online.
More than half.
Yeah. Just even saying the fact that I knew what someone was up to all of last week and not knowing their name kind of weirds me out.
It's totally weird, but also normal.
It is. It's weird and normal at the same time.
Yes.
So it's funny. So that's weird and normal. But what are some of the things that people think are normal or are weird that, wait, hang on. Let me run that back. There's so many things that are normal that people think are weird. Does that make sense? Like the fact that I don't know somebody's name, but I know their whole like life essentially via Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
is
think
weird,
about
but
it.
normal.
It's the same thing as like we don't know anyone's phone number anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like I had to look up like my mom's phone number. I don't, you know what I mean? I should know that.
Yeah, I know my
But-
mom's. I think I just love her more than you love your mom, probably.
That actually probably true.
I don't know my mom either.
So you guys are in Austin, Texas, doing just building people up, right?
Yeah, so we just came off 3 days of business masterminding for fitness professionals. So females who are personal trainers, health coaches in person and want to learn how to take their business online, build their platform, do social media, and then offer awesome products and services over the internet.
Over the internet.
Yeah.
So what all goes into that? Give us the rundown. So a lot of these people, because we see these people all the time on the platforms we were just talking about.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. So actually, one of the things that both of us really pay attention to is what is going to be, to me, what's going to make the business more viable. So I don't really care too much about followers, fans, numbers, like in that regard, because I think that's super shiny and people chase numbers, like shares, comments, when it's not actually giving us. We know plenty of people who have 500,000 followers on Instagram, million of followers on Instagram, and don't have a product or service that makes their business viable. Mm-hmm. They might be getting paid per, sponsorship or a couple $100 a month from all these different, people sponsoring them, but they don't have a service that is ongoing. They don't have any monthly renewables. I mean, obviously, and on it, supplements are kind of like the holy grail, where people are every month they need the same things. They're always getting the same products. So how do we recreate that for the online business? If it's info products, it's things like continuity memberships, long-term mentorships. Kind of getting people at a higher price point, higher commitment level. And now we're talking about, doesn't matter how many fans or followers you have. If you have, 50 or 100 customers who are willing to give you money every month, like we're talking about now having a viable business.
So we talk about the money and the economics of it.
Sure.
So what about the emotional piece? Like actually, you have to actually have, you can't, don't let your mind cash checks or write checks that your body can't cash.
Right.
It's a fighting term. But it's
Sure.
the same thing as like you're putting something out there that you can't follow up on or fulfill. I see a lot of that. I see a lot of shitty programs out there.
Totally.
Right. So where's the starting place?
You want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a trust build, right? So you have to have some expertise to begin with. You can bullshit your way to a certain point, but I don't think you can bullshit your way through everything. Yeah. And then it comes down to building trust in person and building trust online. And we talked a lot about that, actually talking about your story and letting people get to know who you are so that they can see you as a trust agent and invest their money in you. But yeah, ultimately to what Jill said, I'd rather have 100 people who know me, really trust me, get what I'm about than 100,000 followers who don't know anything about me. So I think where it starts is building that trust online. So you have to put yourself out there, give a lot of value, give a lot of freebies, give a lot of your knowledge so people actually look at you as that expert, as someone that they would go to in order to hire for their coaching services or their products. I think that's super important, is trust.
Well, and to your point, you have to show them the goods. You have to have results. So if someone is pitching you on coaching services, we were just talking about this off air. If you want to move to like, I want to do life coaching or I want to do health coaching, you need to show your potential customers what kind of results that you've gotten in the past. And some people are just getting started, like some of my women, they only have their own personal experience of overcoming adrenal fatigue or overcoming, losing 100 pounds. They only have their own experience to speak to, but over time they start to get some reps and they start to get, some wins, and they start to have a body of work that now speaks for itself, that they can show, hey, I was able to help these 100 women or these 50 women do this thing. But yeah, it does come down to, because if you don't have results, it's smoke and mirrors. And you and I both know there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in this industry.
There's a lot of smoke and mirrors in this industry. So as we talked about that and having the goods, I really want to dive into, because you two women do a great job of bringing the goods, right? And I will say neither one of your followings are gigantic, right? There's a lot of people who just post ass photos that have a lot more followers.
We know a lot of those.
You guys have a lot of engagement. And when I mean engagement, it's not just likes and comments. I mean people that are genuinely communicating with you based on those 10 or 20,000 people. And I've watched this. So what are y'all's stories? And you guys can go back and forth on this and kind of tell them together if you want. But what are y'all's stories up to this point? What's your experience up to this point, and how did you get to the place where you felt like I have something I can bring to people that might add value?
I know Jill and I talked about this a lot over the weekend, which was when we started, we were both back in like MySpace. And there was a time.
We're dating ourselves a little bit. But.
Yeah. There was a time where it seemed like the fitness celebrities or people at the time wouldn't respond to comments. They wouldn't reply, almost to set themselves as higher or better than someone else. And I think one thing Jill and I did a lot was respond to comments, for me, I think if someone takes the time to comment on a post, and for me, I really started building my business on Facebook, I would like every single comment that anybody ever left. Not because I liked what they said, but just to give them the like, hey, thanks for taking the time to respond and actually engage with me.
Like, I see you.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just like a, hey, like fist bump. Thanks for taking the time to respond, because not everybody comments. Lots of people read and scroll by. So you want to give them that encouragement to relate. And so I think that it also, just think about this. If you commented, like I have this obsession with Taylor Swift. If I commented,
I share that with you.
if I right, like if I commented on one of her things and she replied back, it would make my whole day or maybe even my year. And I think that sometimes, even as small as we are, and I'm in no way any kind of celebrity, just being acknowledged, people just want to be acknowledged. So one thing Jill does very well and that I've done is just acknowledging people and starting a conversation. And I think that set us apart in a way that they value us, they trust us. And that also built our reputation over time as like, this person actually cares and they're paying attention. And I think that's really big in building an audience and building trust, because then other people are like, hey, yeah, like they'll share. A lot of my traction and building an audience came from shares, because people liked what I was saying and they shared it and they wanted other people to know what I was saying.
It makes sense. But when you start those conversations and they're very genuine like that, isn't that where you most likely are going to get your first kind of success stories?
Sure.
It's just from those interactions, and somebody's going to say, hey, this person really helped me. And if you know that you did, or you had that kind of interaction, I'm sure those people would write those for you. Right?
Totally.
And that's kind of in the place where I'm at now with this. As this grows, I know there's a handful of people, and I did through Aubrey Marcus's Go For Your Win course that would be more than happy to write that, because I took the time and didn't ask for anything in return, and just giving.
I think both Danny J and I had, and I can only speak for myself, but I think you had a similar story. We both, I think, had this swift pivot within our kind of business or career. Both of us were figure competitors for a long time. So we were chasing magazine covers and tear sheets, and are we lean enough, or we have our six pack? We kind of laugh about it now, but for a long time, it was just all ego-based. Mm-hmm. And it was, am I lean enough? Am I fit enough? And I think the story I told myself was that my body was inspiring people. Looking back on it, it feels kind of gross to kind of say that, because I don't know that having, a nice set of glutes or like a six pack is really all that inspiring, because it has nothing to do with a service you're providing to someone else. Maybe, and if it is inspiring, it's maybe just inspiring young girls, maybe in their teens, who look up to that body. But I had a huge shift in my business when I wasn't making any money when I was on covers. I had like 6 or 7 covers in a whole bunch of magazines, and I wasn't making any money. I was still grinding it out at the gym. I was still really had a scarce mindset around money and impact, even because there was a ceiling to how many people I could reach. And it was in 2010 when I did kind of the second iteration of my blog, where I was like, I'm just going to make it about everybody else. I'm going to just add value. And I blogged every single day for 2 years straight. And I was like,
impressive.
I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't like mind-blowing content, but it was something. And I was consistent with that. And I was like, let me share what I do. Let me share a tool. Let me share a strategy. Let me share an insight or a recipe or a workout. And I was just give. And then it became about the audience. Then it not became about my abs, but can I help someone else actualize a feeling of empowerment, or get a six-pack, or just eat better for their family, or whatever that looked like. And for me, it went from self-focused to other-focused. And it's been like that since, and that was when it was kind of like my business really started growing.
I know I've seen that's a common trend too. I realized this when I started this podcast and went this direction. I had to find a way to make it not about me. Because if it was about me,
you're interesting, but not like it's hundreds of episodes interesting.
Yeah, I mean but even that, it's like why? It's like if it wasn't for other people, if this wasn't going out there, and that's kind of what I was getting at earlier, where it's like, what it's a weird shift in your mindset when you think, oh, well, my life experience up to this point is worth sharing because it may be valuable to other people, and you have to kind of overcome the fact that you like, am I just a narcissist?
Exactly. No, you are. I mean, you actually are.
You kind of are a little bit, but everyone is, and that's okay. And I accept
Right.
that about myself, and then I teach people how to accept things about themselves that maybe are uncomfortable sometimes.
And then there's some just delusion, there's
Yeah.
some delusion. I think that comes especially when you start garnering a larger following on social media, you start believing your own hype. And then you
don't
forget.
drink your own Kool-Aid, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's a balance of feeling like believing in yourself and having the confidence and the conviction, because that's attractive. But at the same time, you have to just be humble and realize that if you do want to make your business successful, or you do want to impact way more people than you ever could at your local gym, it's not about having the perfect body. It's about, how can I share insights so someone either feels related to or feels like they can learn from something from my experience or my clients' experiences.
Yeah, and people, and I've said this many times, they love to say "me too" or have someone say "me too" to them, and especially in men. And we saw this in the Go For Your Win course, and I'm sure we'll see it again this next time around. Is these guys we have an online private Facebook group where everybody in there is like, you're not allowed to be a dick, essentially, right? Like, that's the way it goes down. And everybody was over compassionate. And this, we're 3/4 of the way through this 13-week course, and there was guys that were writing what they were struggling with in the box to post, and would get finished. And this happened several times. And they told us about this later on, and they would delete the whole thing.
Delete it.
And the hardest part is, like, when you put that out there, someone's gonna be like, "Oh, thank God!" Like, me too, you know. And the more and now, especially in the age we're talking about with social media, or even this podcast, like this, I can't help but be authentically transparent, and that's kind of a pain in the ass sometimes.
It's such a service, though.
It is. It's like, I have a
really
responsibility to, because it's like,
do.
and that's where it's at. But that's so valuable in this world. Like, that's a form of currency. It's a form of energetic exchange, and I love that. It's so fun.
I think we're part of where Jill and I started to grow, and when she said her business took off, was actually that transparency too. Is, I know we were both in a very similar place, doing covers, getting looked at, getting likes, getting shares, and realizing that maybe we thought we were being inspiring, but we weren't. But then actually sharing, like, you know what? I actually was trying to look very commercial. And to be honest, like, this is how I really feel about what's going on. I started a brand called, it was about me for so long, and I decided to make it about the people I was serving. And so I started a brand called the Sweaty Betties. I wanted to make it not about me. And I remember the whole basis of the Sweaty Betties was just to talk about the truth about dieting, the truth about workouts. I remember at the time, a lot of my clients were coming to me asking about HCG and paleo and vegan, and there were so many trendy things happening, and I just really wanted people to listen to their own bodies and see what would work for them. And when I started to just share what was actually happening with me, or how I authentically felt, instead of trying to be what I thought people thought I should be, that's when people really connected. And people feel very connected to truth, rather than people feel connected to truth versus the shiny picture. Like, they'll go for that for a little while, but then ultimately they're like, I want to know what's really going on. And so I think that's, like, for me, being authentic. I know Jill is super authentic, and sometimes it's scary. It's hard to put that out there. Like, I know for myself, I've even typed posts where I'm just like wanting to delete or hit publish, and then I just shut the computer and leave because it's so terrifying. But I think putting stuff out there that is really deep and authentic makes other people feel so much more connected to you, and it gives them the chance to open up themselves.
It does, and it almost gives permission.
Yeah.
JP Sears talks about this, and I was at Freedom Fastlane, and I love that guy. He's so fantastic.
He's so
I actually got a
funny.
chance to spend some time with him, and it's just, I wish he would just take me under his wing. He's so great.
I've never met him, but he's so hilarious.
He's better in person.
Oh my God.
He's a fantastic human being. But he talks, you're essentially addicted to what you connect with.
Yeah.
And for some people, that may be something that's toxic, or that may be this kind of like what Aubrey would call like a unwinnable game, and that may be covers. But that stuff's going to go away, unless you move on from, like, I don't know, Maxim to Home and Garden or something.
Right.
Like, there's an
That's
option
my
there.
next goal.
Yeah, it's
Bucket
like,
list.
I'm like, man, maybe one day I can be like a big and tall model, and I'll do that later on. No, but it's when you put that out there and people do connect with you, like, it's so refreshing, and when you that's going both ways. You radiate this kind of vibrancy, that you don't see, ironically, in a lot of like fitness models. Like there's something about that kind of look and feel of a really truly healthy person, and when you share yourself genuinely and you really have faith in the way that you're treating yourself and treating people around you, that it's obvious.
I think it definitely is. And one of the things that I tell my girls is the more specific the story, the more universal. So if I talk about something, like sometimes I've written some things about like my parents or just my like growing up that seems so specific. I'm like, there's no way anyone is going to relate to this. And it's in those moments that people are like, that I thought I was the only one, or like, that's the exact thing that happened to me. So if it's more vague, you're just not going to get as much traction if we're talking about from a business sense. But if you can be super specific, one thing that I have seen is there's a huge movement of transparency, which I think is amazing. A lot of women who have huge followings are starting to show like their, fat rolls or whatever it looks like. And I think that where they're sitting down and whatever. And I think that movement is a service. But I think the thing that's scary as someone who is creating content, the scary thing is, will this undermine my credibility? If I share this, they won't think I'm perfect. They won't think I have a body that's aspiring or whatever. But I don't know if you guys have heard of the pratfall effect. It's this like psychological construct where they've shown that in research where people show up to give a business meeting and they have like a suit and tie on, and one guy comes in and he has like coffee spilled down his shirt. And he's putting on the meeting and he's very competent in the meeting, but he's like, oh yeah, sorry, I just dropped coffee on myself earlier, whatever. And they show that he is more trustworthy than someone who comes into the office and like acts perfectly, but doesn't have the coffee stain. And so you have to have two things. Number one is you have to have something that makes you human and something that is relatable, but you also have to have the competency. Without that competency piece, it just becomes kind of like a sob fest, or it becomes like dumping, or I'm sure you guys have read stuff online that you're just like, why am I depressed after reading that versus inspired, right? So if someone shares something super vulnerable, super deep, something that is, quote, not perfect, but then at the end there's some sort of like positive turnaround, or there's some sort of like, well, I don't have all the answers, but here's what I learned. There's like that kind of just positive turnaround or uplifting piece. You're getting both. You're getting the humanity plus the competency, and that marries the two. And that's like the ultimate in trust building.
Do you think there's a big piece of competency that's knowing when to say, I don't know?
Totally.
Yes.
I think that's a huge,
Yes.
and that may be an ego thing, and being from the background that I have, and I've seen this in the groups that we run in the Pleasure Monkey Life group, is we do these things called Wandering Wednesdays, where on the Wednesdays we get on to a live call, we take questions that are just kind of people asking, and they're asking me questions, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any kids. Like I can tell you, but I can listen to what you have to say, and I can be a sounding board, and I'm pretty objective. But at the end of the day, it's like with the caveat of, let this be known that I don't have, I haven't been in that situation, and I feel like just that, like people are like, okay, I understand, like, but I'm obviously doing the best I can, but I've seen a lot of that when people are just like, yeah, I don't really know, and being comfortable saying that is first very hard to come to terms with, especially when you're a fitness professional or someone who's wanting to give someone advice in some way, but it's hard on yourself.
I think
to say
that makes people so much more credible when they can admit that they don't know, and I find it actually not okay to just make up an answer. Like, what's the alternative? Is you just pull something out of your ass and you're like, well, this is it. And then they go back and Google it later. They're like, that guy was an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So I think it's actually so important to say when you don't know, and just say, hey, I actually don't know. I'll look it up later, or I can find someone with the answer. But you don't have to know every answer to every question, and just be okay with that. Yeah, I think that's a huge trust builder and breaker if you act like you don't, or you act like you do know, because people can find out later and then know your bullshit.
Yeah, customers are more savvy than ever.
Yeah.
Like
somebody will call you out.
Then if there's 200 people on the live call and I make up some bullshit, someone's going to immediately be like, that doesn't make any sense. Right. It's terrible advice, versus like.
And I think all of us are similar in that, like, we want people to be more independent thinking. Like, I like when people look up stuff. I love being questioned. Mm-hmm. I love, I feel like politically we're in this climate because a lot of people haven't questioned, or like, I think a lot of people just follow conviction blindly. Someone says something that is not correct, but they say it with enough conviction that people want to follow. And
are you talking about somebody in particular?
Just saying, in general.
No, just in general. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. But I do think that, probably.
No, you know what, to Jill's point, and not even anyone in particular, although we know who we're not talking about, is that sometimes people believe the one with the loudest voice. If you can say something with enough conviction and argue it, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, enough people can follow you. And I remember when I started in doing the Sweaty Betties, there was, I don't even remember the person or the blog, but I know there was this like haterish thing going on, and they just spoke louder and they sounded so convincing. But if you did the research and looked at the science, it made no sense. But so many people believe them because they believe their own stuff. And so, yeah, you can have a loud voice and believe your own shit, and other people will follow it, at least for a time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's why it's so important to just get people to ask questions. Like, be curious. Like,
curiosity is super important.
Everything.
Curiosity and transparency are really fun, and they're fun to play with together. But in the nature of transparency, like, what are some of the biggest things in y'all's life that have shaped your character and your approach to how you do business now? Maybe back in the day, maybe new, I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, when I first started Jill Fit in 2010, in its iteration like it is now, was mainly just nuts and bolts fitness and nutrition. And then it was about, and I remember it took me so long to post everything because I was making sure that the science was correct, and I was looking at the biochemistry, and it just took me such a long time, and I was trying to sound like people who weren't me, but that who I thought were, how it was supposed to look. And it was about 3 months into my business where I had actually some personal stuff go on with me with my relationship at the time. And I remember being like, you know what? I just, like, in a very cathartic way, I posted, and it was the most vulnerable post up until that point. It was the first time I started talking about mindset, anything. Here's how I'm feeling. Here's who I am. And here's, the vulnerable pieces. And it, up until that point, was the most well-received piece. I didn't do any research. I didn't look at any science. It wasn't about, the nuts and bolts. And from there, that totally changed my business. I was like, you know what? People need this. And being someone who was interested in science prior, to get into mindset and looking at, when I say mindset, I mean looking at my own BS, the kind of story I was telling myself of victimhood or martyrdom or, being taken for granted, or the poor me syndrome, into more of an empowered mindset. I get to create my life. I have a choice in how I perceive the world, all of those kind of things. I started very scientifically. I started looking at the research of positive psychology. I was like, okay, let me just see if there's some science to this mindset stuff. And I was like, I can't go all the way to like Eckhart Tolle, and like I can't quite go there, but I'm going to start with the science. And I read a ton of positive psychology stuff, Martin Seligman's work, Tal Ben-Shahar, Sean Achor, and I was very much into that. Show me the research. And then from there, I was able to be more open to, Byron Katie's kind of like my number one person whose stuff I read, and really truly believe in that kind of thing. And then that's became a huge part of my brand, was talking about how do we interact with the world in a way that produces peace and ease and detachment from our, more secure relationships and all of those kind of things. So that was kind of, and it has served me well because so many things have changed in my personal relationship, my romantic relationship, as well as my friendships and things like that, that I was able to use these tools to help me get through those. It doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't take away the being disoriented or the confusion or the uncertainty or discomfort, but at least you feel like you have an anchor. You have tools.
Do you feel like you needed that experience to find that anchor?
100%.
Yeah.
Now looking back, I think I can speak for the two of us. Both of us are super grateful for having some of the tough stuff come up in our personal lives. But if someone had tried to tell me back then, like, just be grateful, I would have been like, punch them in the face. I can't hear that when you're going through something and you feel so uncomfortable and everything's uncertain and you don't know what the answer is. And you one day you're like, I'm doing this. And then that you're just doing that to make a stand versus it's what you actually want to be doing. You can't, in that moment, in my experience anyway, feel super grateful for the lesson until you have some insight and you have some perspective, whether that's a week later or a month later or 10 years later. Yeah. That gratitude piece for me anyway has been huge.
I call that the gratitude gap. It's like the gap between the event and and gratitude. And it's so. I was sitting at dinner and we talked about this because it was like what Don Miguel Ruiz seems to have this. He's kind of a mystic and he seems to always be perpetually at peace. And we're like, what is that? And to me, that didn't make any sense. I'm like, that doesn't even seem healthy or right. And what we ended up kind of talking about was, it's not that he's always at peace. He just has found a way for when things to come up to close the gratitude gap so small that you don't even notice it. Yeah. That it only happens internally and it's, oh, okay. And if you think about that, it's hard. Like, you understand you're going through something that you're going to eventually be grateful for. It makes it a little bit easier. It doesn't. It still hurts.
Totally.
The cathartic post. I wrote that post at 3:30 in the morning. when I couldn't sleep, and it got the most response of anything. If you want to go to my Instagram now and look up one about the role of love, or the role of the heart, excuse me. That was written at 3 a.m. on zero sleep, and it was one of the best things I've ever put to words.
Ones.
So what about you? Where were we at?
I mean, very similar, except I didn't do the science research that Jill did. But in 2013, so the Sweaty Betties was started with myself and a business partner, and she left, and it was very much this heartbreaking. She was a best friend of mine. We really had this great vision, and she even signed these papers sent to me. It said the Sweaty Betties divorce, and it felt like a divorce. And I was trying to figure out where to go with the business now on my own. And I remember creating content and just sitting behind the computer, like, what do I want to write about today? What do I want to write about? And this thought came to me, which was from my high school. One of my high school teachers, she said, don't think about what you want to write about. Ask yourself what you don't want to write about. And that popped in my head, and I kind of made this commitment to myself that year that anytime something came up that I didn't want to talk about, that was what I had to talk about. And it forced me to get super uncomfortable, but every single time I did that, it was when I would get the most responses, the most replies back to my emails, the most comments, the most like, thank you for saying this, thank you for sharing this. And it never got easier. I freaking hated it every time. To this day, I've recently done some more of those posts, but still every time they're the most impactful. And so that really moved me forward and just going, the stuff you don't want to talk about is probably the stuff you have to, like the 3 a.m. post, you probably didn't like set out to write that. And it's so impactful and powerful. And every time I did it and I realized that that was what people responded to the most, it's not now that I try to do that. It comes up naturally still within my content and also of service to the reader. So I'm always thinking, you know, like Jill said too, you don't want to just dump. You don't want to be that person where you write it and you're like, yeah, this person just like went through some shit and like, it makes it makes you uncomfortable to read.
To me on the internet,
right? You're like, why are you just?
It's more of a Dear Diary. You're like, what's the utility of this?
Yeah. There's definitely pens and papers for that can stay offline. Yeah.
Like you don't need it. Yeah, your blog doesn't need to be a diary. And for me, I definitely look at, is there a lesson to be learned in this for me? Have I figured it out for myself? Is there a way that this is going to be of service to my audience? Is it relevant to them at all? But then sharing in a way that I think it will be relevant or at least of service to them, that they can see the lesson that I learned might help them. And there's a fine line between being I don't want to say too authentic, but yeah, like using the internet as a dumping ground to just share everything. And
in real time, I think
yes.
Sometimes, like, you know, those people who are your friends with on Facebook, and like literally they're sharing every single terrible thing that's happening throughout their entire day without having some sort of insight. I think that just tends to be.
That actually happened today. I wasn't watching someone's Instagram story, but I saw it on someone else's phone. It was like, oh, my phone's broken, and I'm like, fuck my life, and I have to go to the Apple store, and like, I was like, what? So like, I don't want to see that. Like, what are you putting that out there for? Like, you have 200,000 followers. Like, leave it alone.
And sometimes it can be fine, like if it's like, behind the scenes, but it just is there's a very fine line of it. Maybe if it's just the one time and people think it's funny, but
yeah, I was gonna say there has to
be
it was maybe funny, but to me, right. I was like, I don't know.
Right. If you're going through some, I don't know. I saw somebody who posted about their ex and posted about, oh, well, he wrote all these messages to this woman and like I'm like, whoa, you don't need to put all that out there. Like, you don't need to put their private messages on blast.
And you don't need to put their name in it or know who it is. Like, you can work your way around people's names just out of respect for yourself.
We've had actually, to get like super juicy, the two of us have had a lot of conversations recently. Is it appropriate to talk about, or do you need to, or should you talk about some of the things that happen behind closed doors? And what's the utility of that? I think a lot of times maybe your readers or your, whatever might feel like they're entitled to know because they have stuck with you or they've been with you for however many years. They want to know. I know I just recently went through a divorce, and for the 2 years beforehand, we were separated, living in separate cities, and people were messaging me, like people I didn't know, never knew, what's happening with you and your husband. I haven't seen you guys together, and and I didn't respond to any of them because I wasn't ready to share that publicly yet. But people do; they feel like they're entitled to know, and I have no problem with them feeling entitled. But I just know that I'll share it when I'm ready. And some people don't share ever. And I finally shared over like about 6 months ago, and Danny recently shared some stuff about her relationship too. And we also want to protect the person that we were with. So what does that look like? And there's a lot of questions that we're having literally like in real time this week, last week, about how much do you share, and is it putting someone on blast, or is it just sharing factual information, or is it just sharing your story? It's juicy and it's tough, especially as a personal brand. So I don't know what
Yeah, I
the
feel like there has
answer
to be
is
some time
exactly.
there too, and
Totally.
communication, and you should probably feel at a place of peace. I feel like before you start
I like that.
putting that out there, just then
Should definitely feel.
you could, in any situation like that, and we've had these conversations, and have been in situations where I'm, it's parting ways, and
Yep.
and sharing, and knowing that I'm like, I feel like I do have a responsibility to be very transparent, but I always know that I want to bring even if it's at 3:00 in the morning, like bring my best self
Sure.
to the people that are engaged with me in whatever reason. And if I know that I'm not in that place, like then, yeah, it's not a place to share.
Yeah, if you're super emotionally triggered still by like the person or a situation, it's a no for sure.
Yeah.
Because you're not in the right mind frame to share.
Check yourself
Objectively.
before you wreck yourself.
You should. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, there's that. Or what is your intention behind it? Are you intentionally trying to throw someone under the bus, or are you just stating this was what happened and the way that it happened, and this is my experience?
Yeah, or this is how I felt. This is my experience.
Yeah.
This is how I felt. Because you own your experience.
Totally.
That's yours to share.
Can never be wrong.
Yeah. Sharing someone else's like, well, he must have thought this about
Right.
me. But uncoupling is hard. Uncoupling after a long time, and I tend to like not use the like breakup terms are really difficult because that makes it seem like there's some kind of like failure associated with
Totally.
it. But there's a lot of expectations that get tied into things. Christine Hassler is such a good teacher when it comes
She's
to
amazing. Love her.
expectation hangovers. I
Yes.
know.
Oh
my
yeah,
God.
I've got to get out there
Her
and see
book is
her.
great.
So good. Yeah.
She sent me that book a few weeks ago, and I told her, I actually just sent her a text, and I said, I didn't want to read it because, I feel like we're peers, and I felt like maybe she was, in a way, I felt like it was maybe condescending, but I went through it, and it's written so well, you don't feel like she's telling you what to do. You feel very much like it's a conversation, and it's one of the first books where I actually did the journaling exercises, and it's been so helpful. It's so well written and so good. I told her, I was like, this is such a beautiful book, and like, I can't thank you more than just like sending this to me and thinking of me to send it to me, because it's so good. It's so good.
She was just here the other day, and I just like love giving her
Yeah.
a big old hug. She's great. But then that book is Expectation Hangover by Christine Hassler, by the way, for all you guys out there that want to jump in there and find out. I wish she, I read it, and I think it's fantastic. It was definitely written by a female to females.
Yep.
Sure. Sure.
Or somebody would write the same book in bro speak. Maybe I'll take that on.
Hey, that could be yours.
Yeah, so that uncoupling piece is always something, but you learn a lot about yourself through relationships. That especially if you take that intention into it, like knowing that, okay, I'm getting into a partnership where I feel like I call it like it's conscious, like the relationship is conscious. So you have your energy, your experience, your life, and someone else's, and I kind of operate under this belief that your life right now in this present moment, all of us sitting at this table, is really just an accumulation of all of our experience prior to this funneling into this very moment. And that kind of moment, that present bead, like kind of moves along the spectrum that is, experience, present moment, expression. Those are the three kind of components of existence. Not to get super esoteric.
No, it's
but
good.
what you're essentially doing when you decide to partner with someone is share your experience. Like you're kind of putting those beads of presentness together, and it creates this kind of own thing. And that thing kind of has feelings outside of you. Individually have your own feelings, and then this relationship, this conscious relationship, has feelings too that can get kind of dinged up and expressed and hurt and loved and all the feelings, the whole spectrum. And you almost have to treat it that way. And sometimes letting that thing go is the best thing for everybody. And like consciously uncoupling is important. But man, it's hard to find that because of all the baggage that our experience brings into the present moment. Yep. That you're actively choosing to share with someone. And letting go of that is fucking rough.
Well, you start to create an identity, right? Like you have your own identity, and then the person that you're with has an identity, and somehow over a period of time, you create this identity as a couple, and you often lose your own personal, or a lot of it gets lost along the way. So when that splits, or you're no longer a couple, I think for a lot of men and women, you kind of get stuck in that, like, well, who am I now? Because I actually somehow lost, like I became this identity of the couple versus two people. merging into one. And I think when you said coming in consciously, I was thinking when I got married, I didn't come into it consciously. I was like, actually, I had that not at all. I mean, now I go into relationships completely different than then. I think you, at least for me, I don't say like you, but I was like, go to school, go to college, get married. Like you just kind of follow the next thing. So I didn't actually go into my marriage as thinking he's bringing his stuff, I'm bringing his stuff. It was very unconscious.
Yeah. Mine was the same. Like we were like just full steam ahead. My marriage, Danny and I were both married for 10, 11 years. Just recently split, and I think you just went full steam ahead. I was 24 at the time, and it was what you wanted to do. You know, we built our businesses together. We were just like crushing life together. It was amazing, but we got to the point where it was just where you start growing in different directions, you know? So like, you're like this, and then you're kind of growing together, and then you kind of grow like this. And then if you're not paying attention, like you keep using the word conscious. I think that's the word, is like that conscious, even just that communication. And we just didn't know any better. So you use your relationships, like you started this conversation, you use your relationships as the teaching tools. So you get into a different relationship and you get a whole new lesson that you didn't get in your last relationship. You know, so there are so many different ones that maybe just different people pull out of you. Byron Katie always says the person that you live with is your greatest teacher. And so, I mean, it's like, of
Byron
course.
Katie?
Yeah, Byron Katie.
I never heard of her before. So
oh my God, I'm going to send you a book for
sure.
all of the books.
All of them. Fantastic.
You talk about like a guru, like she's just guru status.
Awesome.
And I think that if you look at it from the perspective of like your partner's job is to like kind of push your buttons. It's the person you're probably the most open with, and not in a bad way, but in a way that's like, I get to learn from this person. And we're going to be on this journey together for however long we get to be on this journey together, but maintaining that level of communication throughout, I think, is key. And then at some point, and I didn't see my marriage as a failure. I think a lot of people do, because they think if it's not till death do us part, then
the ego has constructed this identity around that relationship.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you do get people, you know, they look at it through their own lens of whether it's religious or whatever, that if you're not together till death do us part, it's somehow a failure. And I'm like, man, I had some amazing, I mean, look what we did together. We built our businesses together. We had this amazing thing together. We learned all these lessons. We traveled all over the world. How could I ever see that as a failure? I mean, you know, and I think when you first do like more of the uncoupling, you do kind of have moments of like, was that just a big waste of time? At least for me, I did. And now I look back and of course it wasn't. But yeah, you go through all these different phases of actualization and using your relationship or your significant other kind of as your soulmate. That's how I see my ex-husband. That's how I see my ex-relationships. They were all soulmates of mine because they came into my life and they taught me something that I wouldn't have gotten from anyone else. And I was able to hopefully be something that, you know, someone for them to learn from.
And even that concept of soulmate, I think people think there's one soulmate. And I think we have multiple, we connect with friends on multiple levels. And it's whether, I think there's that quote about whether someone's in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And it's true. You know, sometimes people, like we can have a really interesting deep connection and somebody just said something you needed to hear right then and they disappear and you never see them again and made a huge impact in your life. And then you have people who are with you your entire life, whether they're your mom and dad or your brother or sibling or a friend that you have a lifetime connection with, or a season. And your season could be 6 months, it could be 6 years, it could be 6 decades and then still end. So I think we have many soulmates and we connect on different levels. That doesn't mean that we have one person. And I know Jill and I have talked about this a lot, is I think we've decided too, it's unfair to put all of those things on one person, to expect them to be everything for you, to be your emotional soundboard and your physical, like to be everything to one person is a huge responsibility and a burden, and it's really not fair.
Well, to be everything to one person when we're not even taught how to communicate with that person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Expect it. You're supposed to know everything.
No, it's like, well, you should ask me. Like, that would be like, let me know what you're thinking. That would be cool. I can tell sometimes, you know. But it's so funny because we don't get taught these relationship skills. They're not ever put out there for us to learn. It's like even thinking of the term soulmate. Like, I love the way you use that. I would never use that word because it has all this baggage attached to it. That like is been like bastardized by Hallmark cards or whatever the fuck. And it's like you get in this situation where like no one really. I have 30 years old. I've had to teach myself. I'm so much better at communicating with my partner than my parents are.
Yeah.
It's unfucking believable.
Yeah.
I'm just like, they're like, well, we've been married for this long. And I'm like, you guys fight every
Right.
y'all like sniff each other all the time. Like we're over here on the couch like,
Yeah.
damn, I'm hoping I don't ever end up being like that.
Well, to Jill's point too, right? If we look at her relationship or my relationship as a failure, but you look at somebody like your parents where you go, okay, you guys have been married for 40 years, but you freaking don't seem like you like each other. Like, is that a success? Or is it a success that someone could get the lessons they need to get to out of however many years or months they've been together and then leave and move on to the next person and take that learning with them. So we have such an interesting idea of what's a success and what's not. Because my parents are very similar. I think we can look at, and I think that's good lessons for us too, to look at that and go, okay, I know what I want. I know what I don't want.
Just makes us more discerning.
Yeah.
Well,
But I think it's like, how do we define a successful relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or whatever? To me, it's just, you're happy in that it's the thing that you want. So I might personally look at someone who has been together for 40, 50 years who like don't even like each other. And I would view that as not successful, but that's what they want. They want comfort or they want security or they want.
They value that.
Yeah. And so to them, who's to say that's not a success?
Exactly.
For me, I want experiences. I want autonomy. I want, adventure. I want leveling up. If someone's not helping me grow, like it's probably going to be a no. And if I'm not helping them grow, then I think that's probably a no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. I try to talk my parents into being in an open relationship just to fuck with them. It's super fun.
Isn't it so weird once you start talking to your parents with like all this kind of like new insight? And my parents get scared as fuck. They're just like, they don't even know how to have like a deep conversation.
Oh, my mom
They're
doesn't.
just,
That's the best
hilarious.
part, though.
Yeah, because you're trying to train them. Like, this is how I want to communicate.
I'm like, just let my stepdad go get some strange. It's fine. It's gonna be cool.
Oh my God, I love it.
My mom's like, well, I don't know, but what do you want for dinner? And I'm like, okay, let's just go back to
Just stop. We're
logistics.
going to church. Jesus.
Right. They're like, we're going to pray for you.
Yeah,
You're
my
like,
mom
I don't
says-
need your prayers. I'm fine.
Yeah. My mom, she'll call me and be like, I know you don't want to hear this, but I'm praying for you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's cool. Like you could meditate for yourself. That'd be even better. No, but there's something you said. You were talking about being full steam ahead in your early 20s and getting married. That happens so often, and not that it's even a bad thing, but I kind of, maybe because I've had a lot of visions in the jungle or the woods. I think about it like this.
And some
like,
amazing mentors.
yeah, which the plants are helpful. But when you're kind of on this path, it's like kind of okay. There's not a lot of resistance there. There's not a lot of friction. You're on a trail. You're doing your thing, and that's easy, kind of. It's not. There's not a lot of mystery, not a lot of fun, and there's not a lot of novelty in that. And pleasure is kind of fueled by novelty. And when you're looking at this trail and you're like, man, fuck this trail, and you want to do your own thing and you grab a machete and start going off into the woods and making your own path, like that's a mess and you're going to get lost and you're going to bleed and you might get eaten by a jaguar. It's like all these things might happen, but that's if you choose to do that, and then sometimes you might make a path that like, oh, this makes sense. I can share this with other people via transparency, being authentic, and then I've made it a little bit easier for the next person and the next person. Then you've essentially created like a new lifestyle, and let people know that's okay.
Listen, Connor, just because you figured this out faster than we did doesn't mean you need to brag. I feel like you're bragging right now.
Am I?
No.
I've had jungle visions.
I think what you're saying, I think Jill and I would probably agree with you. It's like,
Totally.
but we didn't know what we didn't know. And I don't even think, to be honest, I felt like I got married late because I grew up in a Mormon religion. So if I wasn't married by 19, I thought I was actually blazing my own trail, to be honest. But I still was following kind of a society ideal of getting married and going. I mean, but I still like, I didn't have kids, so that was against the grain. Like that was still taking the machete in the jungle.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that there's like going off the trail completely, and then there's going off the trail a little bit. And I really think it's just everybody's individual idea of what they're doing. And then just having self-realization is like asking yourself, is this what I actually want? Because I remember I was the person who said I would never get married. So when I met my husband and we decided to do that, it was actually even a shock to myself to want to go that way. Because I was so independent and I was like, I don't need a piece of paper to say that I'm, committed to you, and I don't need any of that. So you just have to know, or at least ask yourself and have any self-awareness, is like, is this what I want to be doing? Am I doing it just because this is what society's laid out? And even then, so many of our decisions are made unconsciously, and we may not know. And it might just take a car accident or a divorce or something to wake us up and go, wait, maybe my life needs to be different. And I think all of that's okay. Yeah. I think it really is all okay. It's not everybody knows that they are strong enough to wield the machete and make their own path. Some people do have to follow the path of someone else first before they're like, wait a second, I actually want some more adventure than this, or I want something else.
Yeah, for some people that's enough adventure for them.
Totally.
It's just kind of going down a semi-beaten path,
Yeah.
you know, and like there's a little bit there, and that's fine. And you don't have to be a trailblazer, and it's kind of it's always a lot of both, because you're learning from people who've challenged ideas, and there's those people have been around in different forms or fashion forever. And you said you grew up Mormon, like Jesus was challenging the fuck out of some ideas a while back. You know what I mean? Now that may be what it is now, but it's, you know, that there's always been these kind of trailblazers, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fucking play. Like, let's just
I think
play.
sometimes, like, I think what I've seen in my own personal experience is I was never someone who like sought out the play. I was always someone who wanted to elevate in business. Like, I was always curious. I was always reading. I was always wanting to be successful. I was always wanting to impact a lot of people. But from the relationship standpoint, that was my like security. That was my certainty. And because I had that, I was able to go and take risks in business, or I was able to go and travel. And so for me, I think it takes something a little bit jarring. What you mentioned, a car accident, whether it's a car accident or a loss of a job, or you have to move across the country, or, you know, you're faced with infidelity, or you have something like a lot of just things where life smacks you across the face and forces you to, if you decide to, and plenty of people don't decide to, but if you decide to look at it like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to choose something else if I want to be that courageous. And so I think a lot of times, or at least I can only speak for myself, I didn't really search out like the play and the adventure and the whatever within my relationship until I was kind of forced to, through circumstances, not from anyone's. There's no blame. It was just more like, okay, now I'm here. What am I doing now? Like, I need to move. Like, I need to feel empowered. I need to like take the reins. I need to do something different. And that is scary, and it fucking sucks at times. But looking back, you're just like, thank God.
Yeah. It's like forced reflection.
Oh my God, you feel so much stronger as a result too.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you feel like you're in a situation where you need those, like if you like need a jarring, like someone to shake you, like
give me a car accident.
Yeah, there's ways to do that. I mean, put yourself in a place where you're uncomfortable. You know, I mean, that can be.
So here's a question for you then.
Okay, I like these.
How do you know if you're someone who needs to seek out adventure? Like, what are the things? Like, how are you feeling inside that you're like, I need to put myself in an uncomfortable situation?
I think that I think the first thing you have to do is stop and find some stillness. And then if you find yourself thinking, is this really it? Like, is this really it? Is this all there is? Then you go do something different. And that doesn't mean like go to like cheat on your wife or do something out of control, but it's just remember that. Like, because it's not. Probably, most likely if you're thinking, is this it? Then it's probably not it. Yeah. You know, this isn't all of it. You're it. You have the potential to do anything and everything within yourself. Like, you're the universe, if you want to go into the woo-woo speak. But if you find yourself kind of, that reverberates within you with a little bit of stillness, that's the first place you go. Personally,
I think a lot of people get there and they ask the question and they know the answer, but they get scared to do anything about it. And then they just retreat, or they...
I mean, isn't that like the midlife crisis classic?
Yeah.
Is this all that there is? Because people don't pick their head up until they're 45, 50 years old. And they're like, what I've been doing the last 20, I don't even know. No, I haven't been making my own decisions the last 20 years.
Well, the general response to that is go do the typical shit that you just go follow other patterns. You've been following a pattern for so long, and then you fucking realize like, oh shit, I've been following a pattern. Then you go buy a shitty sports car. Yeah. It's like you got to say, okay, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Let me go find some like what.
You're
else
like, I'm going to buy an SUV.
I'm gonna buy a crossover. Okay, I'm gonna buy a Porsche Macan. Okay, it's sporty, but it's really pragmatic.
But it's practical.
Yeah, Porsche SUV is practical.
Porsche SUV.
I'm definitely gonna have one of those one day, by the way.
Totally, of course.
But no,
we'll know you're in your midlife crisis when we see you in that.
Yeah. It'll be. Hopefully, it's in the next couple of years. So,
dude, get it over with as fast as possible. I love it. We talk about this a lot. Like, life has been kind of messy the last couple of years, but I kind of like it.
Well, you thrive on it sometimes. You know?
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, I like that it's messy. I'm actually okay with that.
That's a lesson.
Yeah.
It's like this awful, hilarious, terrible, beautiful. Like, I cried so hard in the last few years, but I think there's something to be said about actually feeling something. Like, I do appreciate that I had something so great that it made me feel so terrible when it was taken away. And as much as I hated every moment of it in the moment, I also was so grateful that I had that to even feel. I think I've been through times in my life where there was just a lot of numbness, like no highs, but no lows. And I think you really need some of those lows to feel and appreciate the highs. And so I think sometimes we just get scared to feel. And I think a lot of times we get scared to feel the bad stuff, but we also don't allow ourselves to feel like the fun and the amazing. And I know Jill and I have had so many fun experiences and like laughter and things going on in the last year that have been so fun, but it's also been the hardest fucking year. So it's just like life. It's like, damn, just take it all in and appreciate the shitty stuff and realize, I think for me, I constantly just say this too shall pass. Like, as shitty as it is, the sun always comes up every single morning. Your night is never going to last forever. Your winter is never going to last forever. Winter doesn't stay all the way through the summer. Next is the spring, and next is summer, and then is the fall. We have seasons in our lives, and they come around just as consistent as the seasons and the sun and the moon. So your life is not going to be sucky forever. It's not going to be amazing forever either. So we just have to roll with it and just go, okay, this is a season. This is what I'm feeling now, but it's not going to feel shitty forever, or it's not going to feel amazing forever.
It's true. And you're making an active decision to experience the full spectrum. Like if you can feel more love and joy and pleasure, you're also going to feel more fear and pain. Like that, you broaden that spectrum, you broaden it on both ends.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Totally.
Because when you become comfortable with the idea that you have to experience both, like that's beautiful.
One of the things, I was pregnant in high school. I was 15 when I got pregnant, and my boyfriend at the time was into like Taoism. And it was one of the hardest times of my life that I'd ever gone through, with obviously being Mormon and pregnant teenager and all of the things that go along with that. But I remember he told me he believed in like the yin and yang. And he said for every like bad thing, there's an equal and opposite good. So I just remember right after I gave my daughter up for adoption, just crying in my room and just bawling. And I was thinking, there better be some amazing shit that's going to happen in my life, because this sucks so bad right now. But I thought if there's an equal and opposite, that there's going to be some amazing stuff in my life. And I've held to that a lot. Every time I'm feeling really bad, I'm like, this feels so terrible. Something is going to feel so good. Like it has to be equally awesome as bad as this is. And that's just something that's stuck with me. When I feel bad, I'm like, all right, there's some really good shit coming. Because it's just the way I had to get through it, whether it's true or not. And I think it is, because I've had some really amazing shit happen in my life. But it's just been a coping for me just to think, okay, if it's this bad, then there has to be an equal good on the other side. So if it's really, really shitty, just be so excited that something really cool is coming for you.
You're learning. That's it. That's beautiful.
Well, it's also like a decision to level up in your life, right? Like anytime you do something bigger, you do something different, you travel the world. Like anytime you put yourself, my brother told me this a couple of weeks ago, we were talking, and he said, anytime you put yourself in the arena, no, there's a chance you're going to be fighting. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's so powerful, because I think a lot of people do choose the safe way. And it's not to say it's better or worse, but they choose to just keep doing the same thing and keep having the same conversations and not ever explore outside of that kind of more safety zone. And I think that that's fine if it's a personal choice, but I know like I've always kind of made the decision to do more, try more, or put myself on the line or get into that discomfort zone. And if you decide consciously, like it's almost like you're making a pact with the universe to like give you all the shit. It's kind of like, all right, if I'm going to be doing that, like I know that I'm going to be fighting. There's a chance I'm going to be fighting. And I'm at the point now that I kind of like that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. You guys are fucking great.
Yeah.
Oh, that victimhood drama.
You come from like the why me to like, all right, bring it on.
I'm just like, let's go. We got it. But what is that? Like my question is always like, what is that? Why some people have that? Is it a little bit of self-trust? Is it a little bit of confidence? Is it just the fact? Is it the body of evidence that you have up until this point that you were able to handle shit? I mean, you have had so many times in your life where you had to be resilient. You had huge. I don't know if you know this, but Danny was also paralyzed for a year in her early 20s, like a whole lot of just host of different things that a lot of us never experience, and was forced to kind of overcome that or not. And when you have experiences, like we've been calling it reps all weekend, where you have the reps, you got the reps, like you have the experiences, you do have that little bit of self-trust that like, I fucking got it. I don't know what's coming, and I know it's not gonna be pleasant ever, but you know what? I kind of like the getting those reps under my belt. Let's see what's life got in store.
The friction gives life shape too. You know, and I think when you become comfortable with that, the more you become comfortable with that, the more something falls in your lap, and you're like, well, didn't see that shit coming, but here it is. And by stressing the fuck out about it and being scared, it's not going to make it go away. It's not going to make it better. It's just, it's here. It's here now. And I mean, being paralyzed for you, that's wild. I mean, I couldn't walk. I was in a situation where I couldn't walk. I broke both my heels for a couple of months. And
did you jump off a building?
Out of a girl's dorm.
There's a story.
There's a story there.
Like heels, you jumped from something.
Yeah, I missed the dirt by like 2 inches, and those 2 inches are the back of my feet. But we had to get out of there because the security the rent-a-cops were coming, and we might have gotten in trouble.
Rent-a-cops.
And we were really drunk. I think it was 21. It was at University of Texas. But for a couple hours, I was in an all-girls dorm with one other dude drinking.
It was worth
Sunkissed and vodka.
Ooh, sounds delicious.
It was, yeah. It was didn't feel good the next morning when you're hungover in the hospital. But even that was like it gives a little bit of context, and just like anything, like if we didn't have, if we're just a lump of clay, like without the shaping and the friction and the pressure, you don't get anything out of that.
So
you're just a big formless blob.
I think
some people like being blobs.
I think one thing,
obviously, yes.
One thing Jill and I have both kind of come across the last year. We've been hanging out a lot, and I think we've been more open to just to see what happens, and we just say, we're going to do it for the story.
Hashtag for the story.
Hashtag for the story. We're like, I don't know how this is going to be. It could be terrible. It could be awesome, but there's going to be a story. And I think when you go into like looking for that adventure and play, we're like, it's going to be a story. So let's go for it. And now it's just starting to be fun, right? You know, things can turn out terrible. You know, it's going to hurt, but you also know, and like Jill said about self-trust, is that even if it sucks and you're crying and it's terrible, you know that you're strong enough that you're going to get over it, and that this will pass, and time will clear the pain, and you just go for it anyway. But maybe, I don't know if just some people are just so scared to feel it. I don't know if there's a genetic component. I can't say why by all purposes of where I grew up, I was one of those people who I thought, well, she was a pregnant teenager, she should be on welfare. And, basically like my life should be, I'm a piece of shit and I don't have anything. Like I shouldn't have graduated college, and I shouldn't have graduated high school. And the girls in my high school who were pregnant were having their babies and going on welfare. And that could have been me as well. So I don't know what made me different, except that there was choices, and I made a choice to be different. And I don't know if some people just don't want to make the choice. They don't feel that they can, they don't feel in their power, or what it is. But I do believe a lot of it is just conscious, and you have to make a conscious choice to learn and to grow and just accept things for what they are.
That's such a funny thing. I had that same moment. I grew up in a really small town in North Texas, and it was, I was at college my second year, and I played football the first year and got injured, and I was around like 19 of my friends from high school, and like 3 of us actually went to class. Mm-hmm. And I remember being like, I have to get the fuck out of here. And I don't think anybody else felt that way. Right. I don't think anybody else had that itch, and I was like, I just have to go. And I went to a different school where I didn't know anybody, and it was like, that was like my first like existential crisis. But it's weird. What is that? I don't know. I think everybody can, even just if you hear this, like thinking about what can I do to make myself just 1% more uncomfortable with my decision, because things are going to come your way. Shit's going to fall into your lap. Things are going to go wrong. That's part of life, There will be suffering in the Buddhist sense, but but you can choose to make yourself uncomfortable and start to hone those skills to handle what's up next.
I remember I did this audio for some of my fans and followers. I worked with so many people in weight loss and nutrition, and just a lot of massive weight loss clients. I had clients who lost 100 plus pounds. And I started to think, what was the difference between the person who lost 100 pounds and the person who come to me over and over and over, and they couldn't seem to lose a pound? And to me, it came down to a decision, because I thought it wasn't the meal plan, because they all had different meal plans, or even some of them who had the same meal plan isn't going to work on the same person. It wasn't their workouts, because their workouts were different. It really came down to just, they made a decision. They drew a line in the sand and said, I'm no longer going to accept the way things are. I have to do something different. And I don't know what it is that just strikes somebody at 3 a.m. to make that decision. And also I think some people do draw the line in the sand and then they go back on it. They may have say it and then they end up going back. But I really think there is just something, it's a conviction. It's some
I think it's where you
piece-
place your locus of control. So like we did talk about positive psychology. Yeah. So I was lucky enough to go on a retreat with Sean Achor. If you guys haven't seen Sean Achor's TED Talk, it's like it's like awesomely funny, and also he's so smart. But I was lucky to spend a week with him, and I kind of don't like the word like optimist because it seems so cliche, but he was saying the difference between an optimist and a pessimist is that an optimist feels as though their actions impact their experience. They feel like what they do matters. So it's where you, in my mind, it's where you place the locus of control. So, you know, whether it's weight loss, I work with a lot of female business people. I think they think, well, if I just get the right coach, or if I just, you know, spend enough money on a program, or if I just, you know, get this person who has the best information, it doesn't matter. A lot of coaches are saying the exact same thing. It needs to be a fit personally. But ultimately, I mean, when I got my first mentor, I paid like $10,000 that I did not have, put it on credit cards. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to just do this because otherwise I don't know what's next. And it felt super risky at the time, but just the act of coming up with $10,000 like that I did not have was all it took for me to just be like, all right, I'm next level now. Like I'm playing on the next level. It didn't even matter what the information was that I got from the coaches. It was just like the act of spending that or investing in myself. And just being like, I'm doing something different. It was that act that really helped me feel like I could do more. And so I think it's where you place the locus of control. Is it with you, or is it with the meal plan, or is it with the information, or is it with, you know, Facebook ads can victimize us, right? Like, you know, oh my God, I can't get traction on Facebook. Like, kill yourself. No, like figure it out. You know what I mean? So I think there's two different ways to look at that kind of stuff. You can be a victim about it, or you can be like, man, no one's getting traction on Facebook, so at least we're all on the same plan. We're all starting on the same level, so why don't I be the one to innovate a little bit? So there's opportunity there, and I think some people don't see opportunity. They just see what's not working for them.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I think the start is just having awareness and investing in yourself in some way. Be curious. Find a way to invest in yourself, get a little bit more uncomfortable, and then place the locus of control where you want it to be.
I think we just came up with the cure for everything.
We cured everything. well,
this is
Well, as you were speaking, though, I was sitting there trying to think back to my 15-year-old self, where I literally felt like I had no control because my parents were in control of my life. So I thought, and I think this is where that was why I was so suicidal, right? Like you think you have, you can't do anything. Nothing makes sense. And I was trying to think of when did I decide that I did have some control over it, because it really wasn't, I didn't feel like that initially. So as you're saying it, I'm like, okay, there must have been a shift.
Didn't
there.
you just like double down in school and like you graduated early from high school?
Well, that was
stuff?
after I had my daughter. And that was when I think the reason I did that was because I felt like I could no longer kill myself and I had to find something. But there had to have been some point where I just decided. I remember my social worker actually made me read Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, I love that book. So good.
And she said, okay, you have to read this and come back and tell me what it's about. And I told her, and she was like, no, you're wrong. And I was like, well, crap, tell me then. She's like, well, basically he said that, you know, all this stuff was happening and he could control how he responded. And I was like, oh. And she was basically trying to teach me that all this stuff was happening to me and I had to control how I responded. And I think maybe it was that book.
I've read that book like 5 times. Have you read that? Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning? He was in concentration camps.
Oh,
and so and
Holocaust.
it was and he said that no one could take over his will to meaning and his attitude, even though they took away everything else. And that is like so powerful. I'm like getting chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, that's an incredible move, you know, and you don't have to be in a concentration camp to.
Thank goodness. No, he was observed. So he was like a psychiatrist, and he was observing people like who would get killed and who wouldn't get killed. And he would see people who just already gave up before anything happened, and they would get killed. But he realized that although they could take away all the physical things and shave their heads and do it, but they couldn't take away how he felt or how he reacted. I didn't get that at 15, 16, but I know she was like, this is the lesson. And I was like, I didn't like it. I remember getting mad about that. You can't tell me that I get to choose. Like, people are doing this to me and making me feel bad, right? Like, it's easy to go like, well, no, you made me mad and you made me feel this way. But ultimately we do choose. We do choose how we feel. We do choose how to react, as shitty as it is, but it also gives you power. Yeah. It's like, I can choose to be this way or not. as sucky as that is to take responsibility, it also gives you a lot of power to take responsibility. I like that locus of control, though. I really am like want to dig into that and like kind of observe how I see people and see if they feel in control or out of control.
You just go up to a stranger and be like, I can tell your locus of control is not with you.
Yeah, like
yeah,
where?
they really appreciate that. I bet.
Or just ask, do you know where your locus of control is right now? Is it over here or here?
I feel like we gave the listeners a lot
Yeah.
of resources. So let's give them this. Where can we find you guys?
On the internet.
On the internet, yay.
Well, obviously, if you guys come to LA, if anyone wants to hang out, we are on the west side. We're in Venice.
We work out at 9 every day at Gold's.
At Gold's Gym, the Mecca. If you guys want to come and bro out with us.
Hey, or over at Deuce CrossFit too sometimes.
I'm at Deuce, and I'm also at Paradiso. I like the different ambiance. I'm all over the place. Just online at Jill Fit everywhere and
At
jillfit.com.
everywhere?
That's it.
And mine's DannyJ.com. It's DANNY like a boy. DannyJ.com. DOTCOM. Just like it sounds.
Well, if you felt moved by this podcast, go ahead and go onto Facebook, search for Pleasure Monkey Life, request access. The first 1,000 members are free, and share your story, and we'll share back. Ladies, thanks for dropping by.
Thank you.
Much love, and we'll talk
Thanks
to
so
y'all
much.
soon.
This felt so self-indulgent, but I loved it. Thank you.
It kind of was. Later on, guys. Thanks for tuning into the show, everybody. If you loved it, please go over to iTunes, give us a 5-star review and some kind words. I would really appreciate it. And as promised, I want to talk to you all a little bit about the lifestyle design program that we are launching. So over the past few years, I've worked with a lot of people and helping them develop their form of authentic expression. Now, I call authentic expression the art of being in alignment with who you actually are and what you actually give a fuck about. I've seen this and worked this in my life over and over again, and always have these moments of checking in with myself, trying to refine the best way for me to express myself that makes me feel more fulfilled as a human being. This podcast is the direct result of that type of practice in my life, and I've been able to share that with other people, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But for the first time, I'm launching this out to the masses. Anybody listening to this show is eligible. That being said, I'm only taking 6 spots, and we are launching on July 1st. If you're listening to this down the road in the future, that's July 1st, 2017. So if you missed it, you can still check it out at pleasuremonkeylife.com. But for now, what we're talking about is an 8-week one-on-one program designed around you. That's right, you. There's no template of if this, then that. We're going to talk about where you are, what you really give a fuck about, and we're going to design your life to be in alignment with that. That's what this is all about. So within the 8 weeks, you're going to have weekly calls. You're going to have strategies based on every call for what to work on that week. And throughout those 2 months, we're going to refine your expression and help you develop your form of authentic expression. Now, there's a lot more that goes into it, but if you're interested in this program, you can email me, Connor, CONNER, at pleasuremonkeylife.com. Also, you can jump over to the Pleasure Monkey Life Facebook group, request access, and shoot me a Facebook message, or at Connor Wanderers on Instagram, and you can just jump in the DM and express interest that way. Like I said, I'm only taking 6 spots for this. It's going to be very much worth it. If you're interested in this program, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. And I'm just really extremely grateful for this opportunity. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for the support. If you love the show, like I said, comments, 5 stars are always so appreciated. If you share it on social media, that's also just like warms my heart. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being a part of this. And we will see you guys next time. Have an awesome day.